As of late, the Toronto Raptors have had a real knack of mismanaging their assets, and in particular, they really mishandled the Pascal Siakam situation. So let's revisit that trade and just look at how bad things have gotten with the return the Raptors received. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to Amateur Sports 2, the second channel in the Amateur Production Network, where we go through additional Toronto Raptors content and videos just like this. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like if you do enjoy along the way. But you may not enjoy this one because, well, we're going through some pretty rough topics here as it comes to the Toronto Raptors. And like I said, their recent knack for really mismanaging assets, whether it be letting players walk for free. You talk about Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, to a lesser degree, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard. But, the big one, Fred VanVleet, leaving for Houston for absolutely nothing. And the Raptors didn't want to repeat that error with Pascal Siakam, so they almost forced a trade out to the Indiana Pacers. Now, I can understand the return the Raptors got from this trade from the standpoint of, okay, Siakam's on an expiring contract, the Raptors are tanking, they're trying to get whatever possible out of this, and that's what they did with the Pacers. Looking at it in a vacuum of expiring contract, the team who trades from knows they have to pay him a max at the end of the season, maybe a little bit reluctantly. Get what you can out of him. In a vacuum like that, the trade wasn't that bad. We'll talk about why the trade in general was bad and the return the Raptors got in that being bad. But in that context, it wasn't that bad. What makes it a bad trade is the fact the Raptors waited until halfway through the final year of his contract instead of perhaps a year prior when it was clear that they were not a competitive team, yet they were a buyer at the trade deadline for Jakob Poeltl, lost in the first round of the play-in tournament, lost out on their draft pick for the most recent draft. It's compounded to that. But the decision to not sell earlier, or even in the offseason leading up to this season, like there was just these blinders for 2 years that this team was going to be competitive when, like everyone else other than the Raptors front office, Raptors fans themselves, they knew that this wasn't going to be a competitive team. So the initial mishandling of this asset here, when it comes to Siakam, is not trading him sooner. So, trade at the time was fine, but the fact that they waited that long made it bad because they didn't get as much as they should have done for Siakam. But, like I said, they'd had all these players they lost for free. They wanted to get something out of it, Like Kyle Lowry, they kept him to the end of the season when he was going to go, and he was a free agent. They signed and traded him to the Miami Heat for Precious Achiuwa and Goran Dragic. They could have had Tyrese Maxey, according to multiple credible sources. Tyrese Maxey was on the table from the Sixers to trade for him midway through that season, where the Raptors were tanking in Tampa anyways. So this is just kind of the latest one here. If you need a refresher, this is the trade that is in question for this video. The Raptors received for Siakam, and the Pelicans put a second-round pick in this trade. Pacers got Siakam. The Raptors got Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, Kyra Lewis, a 2024 first-round pick via the Pacers. That became the 19th overall pick. That became Jacoby Walter. 2024 first-round pick, lesser of the Jazz, Clippers, Rockets, Thunder. That became the 2029 first-round pick. That became the 29th overall pick, not 2029. That became the 29th overall pick. And it was traded before that point to acquire Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji. Probably, solid return there. Agbaji, I think, was a good buy low spot. Kelly Olynyk had a good end of season for the Raptors. Kelly Olynyk looked cooked in the offseason at the Olympics. Agbaji looked cooked in summer camp, or summer league. So we'll see how that one looks. Isaiah Collier eventually went 29th overall. They also got a 2026 first-round pick from the Pacers, protected 1 through 4. We'll see what comes of that one. But that's the trade. Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, Kyra Lewis, 19th overall pick, 29th overall pick, which became Agbaji and Olynyk, and a 2026 first-round pick, which probably will be in the back half of that draft. I'm going to assume right around 20 in that draft from the Pacers in 2026. For Pascal Siakam, two-time All-Star and two-time All-NBA, it's not a very fantastic return because of the fact they waited that long. But as bad as that situation got with that trade, it's just gotten even worse and even worse since it happened. So, first of all, to make room to make this trade, because they're giving up one player, they're getting back 3. We thought Bruce Brown would be a good trade candidate right away. That hasn't happened. We're going to come back to Bruce Brown in this video. Jordan Nwora, Kira Lewis, we had to make room. We had to make room. So who do we waive? Former second-round pick Christian Koloko, who was struggling with blood clots. We know that. Christian Koloko was struggling with blood clots, hadn't played at all that season. His contract was up at the end of the year. The Raptors had to make room for Siakam, so did it make sense to waive Koloko? Didn't make much sense at the time. Made a whole lot less sense when Koloko, 7 months later, signed a contract to come back into the NBA with the Los Angeles Lakers. Waived him, saying they've done everything they could to try and keep him. Did everything they could to try and help him. They decided to cut their losses, apparently, and waive him. Now he's back in the NBA. As bad as that is, right, to waive a player, like a good young player, just for him to come back to the NBA 7 months later. Like, for Jordan Nwora and Kira Lewis, I mean, first of all, the Raptors were tanking and sucked. They really needed to use that extra roster spot on a player. Like, they really had to do that. They just needed Jordan Nwora, Kira Lewis, one of them. They needed. Kira Lewis played the rest of the season with a 905, and then the Raptors let him walk. Jordan Nwora played the rest of the season with the Raptors. Jordan Nwora had some decent games. We could have done without Jordan Nwora, right? We were tanking anyways. And then, like, the players that got waived for Koloko, Jordan Nwora is out of the NBA. He just signed in Turkey. Kira Lewis just signed an Exhibit 10 deal, which is essentially a G League deal on a higher paid G League deal. He's signed to play for the Capital City Go-Go's, the Washington Wizards G League affiliate. He'll be at training camp, but he's going to be playing with the G League team. G Leaguer, guy playing Turkey. 2 guys out of the NBA were brought in from the trade to make room for Siakam, or to make room for the Siakam trade to happen, and waive Koloko. Yeah, that's not great. And as if, like, this is all bad enough, right? 3 not so great picks. We'll see on Jacoby Walter. I actually really like that draft pick, so we'll see on Jacoby Walter. But 3 not so great picks. I thought that the 29th overall pick trade was kind of good for Abaji. Olynyk starting to not look so good with the way Olynyk looked at the Olympics and the way Abaji looked at Summer League, where he was horrible amongst players he is much older than and much more experienced than. So a bit of a, saving grace potentially could be, what can the Raptors salvage out of Bruce Brown to make this trade look a little bit better? Because they couldn't trade him last year. There wasn't enough of a desire from other teams to trade for him. What can the Raptors get from him this year? Well, I tell you, we're off to a real bad start. Right before training camp, right before preseason, Bruce Brown underwent, I've never actually heard this word say out loud. Arthroscopic, I think it is. Arthroscopic surgical and arthroscopic surgical procedure on his right knee. On his knee. Like, you don't mess around with your knee. I would know. He'll be reevaluated in 3 weeks after his knee surgery. September 20th this happens, right? September 20th. Right before training. I don't know if, number one, they thought this would heal on its own. I don't know if, number 2, this is a new problem. Could this not have happened earlier? Could this not have happened a month ago? Could we not have settled this so he's ready for training camp? Because we really want, start the season well, first of all, and Bruce Brown can be a factor in that. We really want Bruce Brown to hit the ground running this season because the Raptors want to boost his trade value to move him at some point. I think that's recognized from the Raptors side of things and from, honestly, Bruce's side of things, that's probably what's going to be the case this season. So potentially one little bit of saving grace, something the Raptors can salvage out of this, is what they can trade Bruce Brown for. And now that's also in a tricky situation. So you waited too long to trade him. You did what you could with the trade. You waived a player you shouldn't have waived. You got a player that you found it difficult to trade, and that's just become even more difficult. And you got a bunch of bad picks for a player who was MIP, G League Finals MVP, two-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA, NBA champion with your organization. You got that out of him. What a calamity of errors. And we are still, we'll see what that pick becomes 26. We are for a while now going to look back on that and say, man, that didn't necessarily set the team back, but that really should have been the springboard to help launch them forward, and it wasn't. They did at least get something good out of OG Anunoby. That was a good trade. So props to them for that. This was another blemish, another one. And we got a lot of them lately, a little bit more than I want there to be. So that's all for today's video on Amateur Sports 2. Make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content just like it, and I will see you again next time.